Welcome back. Today, we're pulling back the curtain on something pretty fascinating. According to the sources we've looked at, there are two secret financial playbooks running our world in parallel. One is for the public. The other, well, that's for the ultra-wealthy. And these playbooks, they don't just coexist. They are literally shaping our entire economy. Okay, let's just start with a crazy question. What if you knew with certainty what the economy was going to do years in advance? I know, it sounds like science fiction. But what's wild is that our sources claim a detailed roadmap was published for everyone to see long before the 2008 financial crisis even hit. And that roadmap? It's a key part of the first of these two playbooks we're digging into today. First, you've got the central bank's playbook, which is all about managing the public currency system we all use. Then there's what the sources call the elite's playbook, and its goal is totally different, preserving private, generational wealth completely outside of that system. So let's kick things off with the central bank's script. Back in 2002, and this is a full 6 years before the global financial crisis, the Fed governor at the time, Ben Bernanke, gave this speech. Looking back, some analysts say it reads like a pre-written script for everything that was about to go down. Now, check out this timeline, because it tells a really interesting story. In 2002, you have this speech that lays out all these drastic ideas to fight something called deflation. Fast forward to 2008, the world economy is on the brink of collapse. And what happens next? The exact policies from that speech get rolled out, one after the other. Our sources say that sequence of events is no coincidence. And I mean, the speech wasn't subtle. Bernanke basically reminded everyone of the government's ultimate power tool. He said, and I quote, "The U.S. government has a technology called a printing press that allows it to produce as many U.S. dollars as it wishes at essentially no cost." Pretty blunt, right? And wow, this chart, this is what that printing press looks like in action. To put this in perspective, it took the United States 200 years to create a monetary base of $825 billion. Then, in just a few short years after the crisis, that number exploded to nearly $4 trillion. It's a staggering jump. So here's the really crucial part. What did that 2002 script actually call for? Holding interest rates at zero? Yep, they did that. Expanding asset purchases, what we all came to know as QE? Check. Buying up mortgage-backed securities, which is basically real estate? Done. Even purchasing private assets to bail out corporations? You guessed it, check. It's like a checklist where every single box was ticked. So how on earth did they pull all this off? Well, the main tool in the central bank's playbook is currency. But here's the catch. According to our sources, this tool has a huge design flaw. They like to call it a leaky bucket, because it's basically incapable of holding its value over time. Now, to really get why they say that, you have to understand this really critical difference. Currency is just a medium of exchange. It's fantastic for buying your coffee or paying bills. But money is supposed to be that plus a store of value. It's supposed to hold its buying power year after year. So how is our modern currency doing on that store of value job? Well, according to the sources, since the Federal Reserve was created back in 1913, the US dollar has lost over 95% of its purchasing power. That's not just a leak, that's a hole in the bottom of the bucket. And this isn't some new problem. Our sources point out that throughout all of recorded history, we've had over 600 fiat currencies. Currencies not backed by something real like gold. And of those 600, every single one, without exception, has eventually collapsed to zero. That is a 100% failure rate. Let that sink in. If you want a really terrifying example, just look at Weimar Germany in the 1920s. In 1922, a loaf of bread cost about 163 marks. Okay. By late 1923, after the government went nuts with the printing presses, that same loaf of bread cost 200 times billion marks. That is what happens when a currency completely fails as a store of value. Okay, so if the currency we all use is a leaky bucket, what do you do if you've got massive wealth you need to protect? Well, this is where we get to that second playbook. The sources we've looked at suggest the ultra-wealthy don't even bother trying to fix the leaks. Nope, they just use a completely different bucket, and their strategy is built on a totally different idea. This quote from one of our sources really just cuts right to the heart of it all. Owning stuff is for the peasants. The key is control, not ownership. The whole game is to separate who legally owns an asset from who actually controls it. So you're probably asking, why would you ever not want to own something? Simple. protection. When your name isn't legally on an asset, it becomes way, way harder for anyone to tax it, to take it from you in a lawsuit, or to hold you responsible for it. And the number one tool for pulling this off is the trust. It sounds complicated, but here's how it works in just 4 steps. 1, you create a trust. It's a whole separate legal entity, kind of like a company. 2, you move your wealth into it. 3, you can make yourself the trustee, which means you still call all the shots. And 4, this is the magic trick. The trust now legally owns everything, not you. And it's not just trusts. The sources point to a bunch of other tools in this playbook. Things like specially designed life insurance policies that work like a tax-free super bank account you can borrow from, or family foundations that give you great tax breaks while letting you keep control over the family assets. All right, let's bring these 2 totally different playbooks together for a final look. Let's see what the sources suggest the final score is in this tale of 2 systems. So here it is, side by side. You have the public system, which is based on using a currency that is literally designed to lose value over time. And then you have the elite system, which is all about controlling hard assets, locked away in legal structures that protect them from that very same currency system. And this really brings us to the core argument presented in the source material, and it's all summed up in this one powerful sentence. Wealth is never destroyed. It is merely transferred. The idea here is that the value leaking from the public's bucket, it doesn't just vanish into thin air. It has to flow somewhere. Which leaves us with a final, pretty provocative question to think about. If we go with the premise from our sources that wealth is never destroyed, it's just transferred, and we see these 2 systems running side by side, where do you think all that value is going?